Welcome to the Ordinary Extraordinary Cemetery, where every death had a life and every life had a story. My name is Jennie Johnson.
Hello, and I'm Diane Hartshorn.
This is one of our rare weeks where it's just the two of us.
I know.
We don't
We've
have
been-
very many of those anymore.
No, which is nice, but we've also had some absolutely amazing guests, so
Yes.
it's all good.
Yes. If you're just now joining us, the past 2 weeks, we had MJ back on, and she was
So much
talking
fun.
about one of her favorite Civil War people, personalities, I guess.
Yes,
Major General Hancock. That was fun. That took 2 episodes though, because she knows all about him, like all the little details of his life and his twin brother and all the stuff. So it was so fascinating to learn all of that.
when her as a historian, a Civil War historian, she's just phenomenal because she studies both sides. It's not just a one-sided. She's been
Mm-hmm.
able to get into the complexities of these men and women because she
And
also
women, yep,
has
because she's got
Pauline
Pauline
Cushman.
Cushman,
So,
her alter ego.
yes, it's just a joy to um, talk history with someone that has such a broad, expansive view on the subject. Yeah, she's a joy.
Yeah, I mean, she really gets into her Civil War history and she lives
Yeah,
it and
she
she's
lives it.
very detail oriented with it. So we love having her on. So
Mhm.
hopefully you've been able to catch those episodes. If not, it's episodes 224 and 225. Can you believe that this is episode 226?
No,
I know, it's insane.
I
Which,
mean, yeah.
speaking of, if folks have visited our website within the last week, they will have noticed the last 5 episodes have artwork with them. Anything previous to that does not currently, because when I was uploading last week's episode, I hit a refresh button that I shouldn't have hit and it refreshed all of our episodes. So
Oh
that's
no.
good news on the episode front. They're all refreshed. So if there were any glitches somewhere, they're all fixed. But it took away all my artwork. So I will eventually get the artwork put back in there. I
Yeah, because
just
I was
haven't.
really enjoying those. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
she's more creative than I thought. And it's just I really love the cover photos and stuff you were creating.
Yeah, and for our like some of our oldest episodes, I think I'm gonna have to go back to our like Facebook account to find the artwork
Yeah.
there because I probably don't have it saved anywhere else anymore, but it will all be somewhere on our social media accounts. So I'll find it, I'll get it. So bear with us if you're visiting our website and you notice that everything just has our logo on it. That's why I hit the wrong button in our upload, and rather than refreshing the one episode, I refreshed all 225 episodes.
But that's okay. It's like, everything happens for a reason. So,
Yes. So I apologize. I will get that fixed. The other piece of social media news that we have for you guys um, is that we no longer have a Twitter account, mostly because I just was like a little overwhelmed with the amount of social media I have going on right now, not just with the podcast, but with other things that I'm doing in my life. And so I was like, I think one less social media account will make my life easier. And so I decided our main focus would be Facebook and Instagram because that's where we can also share all the pictures and videos and things a little bit easier than you can share on Twitter. And as I've said in the past, Twitter, for it to be really successful for a Twitter account, you have to be on it a lot more than we are. Like Diane and I just don't have time to sit there all day and tweet stuff all the time.
no, and you work full time, plus you do the podcast, you do the scripts, and you do the social media. I just show up on whatever
Yeah,
night
but
this
you spend all
Thursday
your
night.
time in the cemetery. So
So it's like, yeah, I mean, you got to put your priorities and I think you get better engagement on the social media, on Facebook and Instagram than Twitter. There's more of a relationship building aspect
I think so too. And
to those two
there's a lot of
platforms,
people
I
that have
think.
left
Yeah.
Twitter and come and gone. And it's just, I was one of those things where I'm like, what can I do to make my life a little easier on this side of things? And one less social media account. And like I said, Twitter was the one where we were the least active of all our social media. So I figured that was the one that I was okay with letting go.
Yeah.
Whereas, so don't look for us on Twitter anymore. Do look for us on Facebook and Instagram. We are there all the time. We're trying to post pictures and stuff. And actually, I have some lovely, lovely pictures of some Zinkies to share from a listener who emailed them to us.
Oh, how
And
nice.
yes, so thank you, Ken, for he sent several of them, and I will get them uploaded to both Instagram and Facebook here in the next few days. It was great that he shared so many of them, but he had one of whatever episode he was listening to. I guess I mentioned how much I love Zinkies, and so he shared a whole bunch from one of his local cemeteries. So I will make sure to share those with everybody very soon. He gave us permission to do that. Um,
Um,
and one more thing before we get into today's episode, which is going to be a lot of fun. But Diane, you guys spent what you thought was going to be a quick little project the other day at Evergreen Cemetery turned into a 5+ hour project. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about that?
yeah, so one of our volunteers, Anna, who's also been on the
She
podcast,
has been.
to share her visit, was it to Scotland? The girl's been all
Yes.
over the world. I can't remember which one we did.
It was
But
Scotland.
yeah, so there's an area in the cemetery that is unendowed, i.e., they don't mow it but once a year. And this might be going on the third year, we planted a pollinator garden and
Which
seeded
I
it and
love.
blah blah blah. But the headstones are very old, so we finally came up with a way to protect the headstones and work on that. So Anna and I decided, because she's home on spring break, we were just gonna go and start just clearing an area around each headstone so we would have, you know, enough room. So it was basically digging through cactus and all that stuff. And we thought, oh, just a couple hours, we'll get plenty done. Yeah. And then we got one done, then we went to the next one, and then we were digging around this veteran stone that it is it is online. If you want to share it later, you can. I
Yeah,
put
I'll
it on
share
the link.
the links that you guys put up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a regular military headstone. He only had about 18 inches showing. So we kept digging and we kept digging and we kept digging. But the one thing we did find, which was really pretty cool, we found a footstone for a veteran's headstone. And it
For
did go
his
to his because it had,
specifically?
yes,
Oh, that's so cool.
because it was smaller and you could just tell how it was beveled on the sides. There's part of it missing, and we're still hoping we can find the rest of it, but it was his unit and everything.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, because I've asked several people, have you seen a veteran's headstone before or footstone? And nobody had.
No.
Um, he's not in our cemetery records. He is only thing because some people have been doing research. There's no research on ancestry on him and one other place. So we know his name, we know his unit. He was only mustered for 100 days, but that's all we know about him. But anyway, the two of us,
I did discover that his stone, because I was doing some digging on
good.
him. Yes, and his stone came from the
Was it
Vermont
from?
Marble Company
Hmm.
in Proctor, Vermont.
And it,
So, and it
yeah,
was contracted in 1894, so several years after he died.
okay. So I one makes you wonder if the smaller one might have been a temporary marker
Oh, maybe that's why he had a footstone.
because he
Yeah,
was buried in 87,
88,
88.
88. Although one thing I looked at did say 89, but I think 88, 1888, 1889. So, but the actual marker that you guys dug up
Yeah.
was 1894.
Yeah, because when I was back in Atlanta in February, we went to Oakland Cemetery, and those stones date to the Civil War.
Yeah,
And they're much thinner and they're shorter and they're a different type of stone than the big, thicker, hunkin' ones that weigh way too much way too much for two people to
to
haul
just
out of
lift.
that.
Yeah.
But it was a joy. He's standing up. So anyway, yeah.
So Private Alexis Leclerc. now can has a readable stone again because you guys,
Yeah.
I mean, it really sunk. It sunk way down. So
Yeah, we couldn't even see his unit until we brought it up.
yeah.
I think, yeah.
So I'll make sure I share those pictures too with everybody in case you're interested. But this is the work that happens in these old cemeteries where you come across these surprises like this, and I think it's so cool. And yeah,
And it's
and now
really
we
nice when you have younger people who have the enthusiasm and the energy to keep going. Because I was like, she goes, no, we started this, we're going to finish it. And I'm like, okay.
good job, Anna. Thank
Yes.
you, Anna. So today we are going worldwide. It's been a while since we've left America, but we are going to Romania today.
So imagine visiting a cemetery where instead of sadness, you're greeted with joy, wit, and art. In the heart of Romania, that's exactly what you'll find. The graveyard that laughs at death, otherwise known as the Mary, that's Merry Cemetery, where the dead are remembered with a smile. In a world where death is often seen as something somber and sorrowful, this cemetery flips the script and celebrates life in an unexpected way. You won't find traditional gravestones here. What you'll encounter instead are colorful wooden crosses that tell the stories of the deceased with humor, wit, and oftentimes a very playful spirit.
And if you take a look, if you're following us on YouTube today, both Diane and I each have a couple different photos behind us that shows these very colorful, intricate crosses that are throughout this whole cemetery. And they are so much fun. They are bright, they are cheerful. The carvings, and you have to remember, these are all wood. They kind of, when I'm looking at the photographs, kind of look like stone, but it's all wood and it's just been painted. But the carvings are very, very detailed and it's so cool. The Mary Cemetery is located in the village of Sapienza in the, and I'm hoping I don't butcher our Romanian too much in here, guys. So forgive me if I do. But the Mary Cemetery is located in the village of Sapienza in the Maramureș County of northern Romania near the border of Ukraine. So it's the southern border of Ukraine. This picturesque region is known for its deep-rooted traditions, folklore, and well-preserved wooden churches, which that was a whole nother rabbit hole I went down when I was doing some of this research. Those wooden churches are gorgeous. The paintings inside, you're seeing the paintings here, but like every inch of wood inside these churches is covered in these gorgeous paintings that just, I would love to go visit them now. It's here nestled amidst the rolling hills that you'll find the cemetery tucked behind Our Lady of the Assumption Church, which was originally built in 1886 and filled with absolutely gorgeous frescoes. The church itself has undergone renovation in recent years.
The story of this whimsical cemetery really begins at the birth of one Stan Johann Potra, who was born in the village in 1908 into a family of wood carvers. By the age of 14, he was already carving wooden crosses, in addition to furniture and other wooden necessities. By the time Potra was in his late 20s, he had made quite a name for himself locally by becoming an expert carver of the wooden gates used by farmers throughout the region. Can you imagine 14 years old?
I know, and just working away in his little wood shop.
Yeah. He was a family man, of course, not at 14, having a wife and two
Right.
daughters, a man who loved to laugh and enjoyed the company of those who lived and worked in his small village.
And what keep in mind, this village is it's like right at the base of the mountains, and there's two rivers that kind of meet up with it. So it's very green and lush and
Oh,
picturesque and gorgeous.
beautiful.
And its population has fluctuated between 3,000 and 5,000 people for the last however many centuries. Like it's always stayed very tiny where it's located. At one point prior to World War II, they did have a fairly significant sized Jewish community there as well. Unfortunately, everyone in that community was deported to Auschwitz with World War II. The survivors that did manage to come out on the other side, most of them either went to the US or Israel or other places after the war and they didn't
Mhm.
return. Although the Jewish cemetery is still there, and the graves are there. And I saw some pictures while I was researching this one that are really cool. So that will be a more somber subject for another day. But mostly, it's a very small rural farm community. They have sheep, they do farming, and they do a lot of woodworking because there's a lot of wood trees and forests in their area where they're at. By the 1930s, Patra realized that by painting the crosses, they would last longer and be better protected from the elements. By 1935 or 36, depending on which sources you're reading, he had perfected his technique of carving and painting the crosses. It was also at this time that he began to paint portraits of the deceased and write custom epitaphs in the form of poems that he himself composed. The poems are all written in first person. By the time Patra died in 1977, he had carved, painted, and written epitaphs for more than 700 graves in this little cemetery.
And probably growing up in that village, he probably didn't even think for a second of the legacy that he
Mm-hmm.
was creating when he started at 14 years old. And without him, we wouldn't have this. It just, we don't realize how we add to
Right.
the world around us, which is really pretty cool. Each of the grave markers at the Mary Cemetery is definitely a work of art. These wooden crosses are brightly painted with intricate designs and illustrations of the deceased life. Rather than being somber, the tombstones are full of life, literally. They feature images of the person during their life, whether working, playing, or even a quirky characteristic they were known for. The colors are not just decorative, they also have symbolic meanings in the Romanian culture. Blue is the primary color on each cross. The pigment was developed by Patra himself and is often referred to as supensa, blue. In Romanian culture, the blue represents hope, freedom, the sky, and heaven. Other colors used are green representing life, yellow for fertility, red for passion, and black symbolizing death.
And accompanying these colorful images are epitaphs, often in verse, that describe the deceased's life in witty or humorous ways. When you think about this, this is a small community, so everybody pretty much knew everybody else and knew everybody's business. So this was one of the ways he was able to come up with all of these epitaphs. The epitaphs are carved in the local Romanian dialect, but many of them have been translated into English. These inscriptions reflect the personality of the person, sometimes with playful jabs or ironic reflections on their life. The poems convey not just who the person was, but often their quirks, sense of humor, and human flaws. Patra and later those who carried on his work were often asked if family members were ever upset by these poems, but apparently not. They wanted the truth about their loved ones memorialized, the traits that made them the person they were, as everyone knew them in life.
So this was one when I was looking at the site. I read this on the website and it's like, oh my God, this was incredible. And I was so happy to see that Jenny added it to the script. One of the most well-known epitaphs is for one man's mother-in-law. Under this heavy cross lies my poor mother-in-law. 3 more days, should she had lived, I would lie and she would read this cross. You who here are passing by, not to wake her up, please. Try, 'cause if she comes back home, she'll scold me more, but I will surely behave. She'll not return from the grave. Stay here, my dear mother-in-law.
I mean, that in itself tells you their whole relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that one. Carved into the cross for Johann Todorou loved horses. One more thing he loved very much was to sit at a table in a bar next to someone else's wife.
Of course, not all the epitaphs are meant to make one laugh. Some describe the tragic circumstances that caused someone's death. 1941, I was living for 58 years. That's how he cut off my head. Whoa, I'm resting bad. Salek Johan is my name. In the Balmizu garden, I took care of my sheep. A bad Hungarian came and shot me in the head, cut off my head from my body, and they buried me like that. May he be cursed forever.
That one's a little more tragic. And I don't know. I think this one, I did find this epitaph on Find a Grave. I didn't pay attention to the image on the grave itself. So I don't
Uh,
know if it shows his death or what. But I mean, even if you look, if you're following us on YouTube and you look at the one that's right behind Dianne, I mean, that one shows a wood carver. Obviously, he's carving into the wood of something back there. And so I don't know if this one shows the graphicness of his death, but it's definitely on his stone as his epitaph about how the poor man died.
well, they talk to you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these stones talk to you. You can almost hear their voices.
What I
Cool.
It sounds weird to say this, what I like about that particular epitaph. So we have some stones here, and I know other people have seen them in other places that say murdered,
Hmm.
right, or whatever. But then you have to like go find the old news articles or whatever to find out how they were murdered and why, and that whole thing. This tells you exactly how he was murdered. Like it went into the gory details of what happened, so you're
From
not
his
left
words,
wondering.
so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
So it must have been for Stan Patra to come up with all of these. I mean, again, he carved over 700 of these crosses and wrote these epitaphs. I mean, his brain must have been like just going all the
Oh,
time
yeah.
of thinking what to write about all these people that he knew, and some of them he probably knew better than others. But he wrote all of these himself.
That's incredible.
Stan Johann Patra made sure that his own life and death would be commemorated in the same way as so many of his friends. He carved his own cross, although it was some of his students that actually painted it for him. But he carved his own cross, which bears a self portrait on one side and his self written epitaph on the other. Ever since I was a little kid, Stan Johann Patras was my name. Listen to me, my good people, because I will tell no lie. All the days I have lived, I wished no harm to anyone, only good, as much as I could, no matter for whom. Oh, this poor world of mine, living through it was so hard.
And he was so smart that he did his own. So
Yes, so
he
he got
didn't have to
exactly
worry
what he
about
wanted.
what would be said.
And if you look behind me, that's whose grave is right behind me. So we can see in this picture, you kind of see the foot of his grave,
Yeah.
which tells that he's the creator of the cemetery. So the wording there, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because it's the Romanian dialect of the area, but it really says the name of the cemetery. And then you can sort of see towards the back of that picture, then is his portrait of himself above his epitaph. And actually, above his head, I found another picture that I looked at that I'll try and put on our social media. There's two white doves above his head, and they're
Okay.
like carrying his soul up to heaven. So I think
Oh,
it's really cool.
very pretty.
Yeah.
In Western cultures, cemeteries are often sites of mourning with gray stone markers and an air of sadness. But in Romania, particular Maramure's, death is not feared or avoided. It's embraced and celebrated. The memento mori tradition in the Mary Cemetery invites people to remember that life is short and death is a part of the natural cycle. The people of Supensa honor their loved ones by celebrating their lives. There's an understanding that the deceased may be resting, but their memory continues to be celebrated in a joyful manner. Oh, I just love that so much.
I know. I do too. Romania is a predominantly Orthodox Christian country, and while religion plays a significant role in the spiritual understanding of life and death, the Mary Cemetery manages to incorporate Christian beliefs with a lighter perspective. For instance, many of the epitaphs feature Christian symbols like the crosses and white doves, but they still focus on earthly life. There is speculation that Stan Johann Patra was partially inspired by Dacian culture. And the Dacians were the ancient people of that region. One of their core beliefs and this gets really wacky in other ways, but I tried to like tone this down. But one of their core beliefs was that death was simply a continuation of life alongside their one true God, Salmoxis. So it was treated as a joyous occasion, and laughter was part of the death ritual, just as tears were part of the birthing ritual.
Hmm.
So it's almost backwards from what we believe today. When a new soul entered the world, tears were shed for the hard life the baby would endure on earth before they would continue on to life with Salmoxis. And then that was a joyful occasion because once you went on to that part of life, the life after death, then that was going to be an easy, comfortable life from there on out when you were with him.
And that's sort of nice too. I
Yes.
mean, that's very nice.
So, and then it was over time, and there was a whole bunch of, I found a really interesting paper that kind of went into more detail about the Dacians, and they did do, it sounds like some human sacrifice in an attempt to, keep this God happy and all of this stuff. But over time, as Christianity, after the Romans came in and then Christianity came in, they incorporated some of these Dacian beliefs into the Christian beliefs. And so in this particular area of Romania, especially, it really kind of they took the Christian belief of life after death, and all of that, and kind of mixed it with what the Dacians believed to make it more joyful rather than less sad. So even though they still feel sad at losing a loved one, they're happy for them that they're going to continue on pain free and in a better place type thing, and it brings them a lot of comfort and joy.
Stan Johann Patras died in 1977, but according to Atlas Obscura, his work was continued by several other talented artists, the most famous being Dumitru Pop Tinicu, who died in 2022. It was Tinicu who eventually purchased Patras' home and workshop and turned it into a museum dedicated to the cemetery and its beloved founder. Today, the work of carving the crosses is carried on by the very prolific George Stahan Cotron and the young Stahan Johann Patras Jr. Oh, and this one got to me. The great-grandson of the cemetery's founder and also the son-in-law of Dumitru Pop Tinicu.
So it was definitely in his blood to continue on this
Yeah.
tradition anyway. This
Oh,
great grandson.
I just love it because so often you see, I mean, granted, this is a village and that culture is very um, embraces and loves our traditions.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we see so many things and so many family-owned businesses that the kids and the grandkids don't want to carry it on. And um, it is so neat to see this art
Well,
continue
what's
on in
interesting
the
to me, and
cemetery.
maybe it's the location of where it, like I said, it's at the base of the mountains, and there's the rivers that are running through it. And so maybe that's what keeps some of these families there generation after generation, because it's just beautiful and peaceful. And so from things that I was reading, it's kind of a sheltered life, except that they have a ton of tourists that come through specifically to see the cemetery. But also not far from here is a monastery that has the prestige of being the tallest wooden monastery or wooden church in the world, that was actually built in like 1997. So it's not like a really old one, but it's built of all wood in sort of the old tradition of the churches of this part of Romania. So there's a lot of people that come to see that as well. And then they also come to see this. And this particular cemetery, and a lot of the different materials that I was reading, is considered one of the seven wonders of Romania. Although, depending on what you read, there's different wonders. So there's like the seven natural wonders of Romania, and then
Oh,
there's the other seven wonders. These are part of the seven wonders that are man-made in this case.
cultural, yeah.
What I couldn't learn, and I just couldn't find it anywhere I was digging, was if this cemetery, because it's right behind this church, and like I said in the beginning, the church itself, the Annunciation, or uh,
The Lady of Assumption.
Assumption, I was saying the wrong one. The Church of the Assumption, it has been there since 1886, and the cemetery is behind it. What I don't know and what I couldn't find out is if there are older graves in addition to these particular ones that he started doing in 1935, is this an older cemetery than that, or is there another cemetery nearby that they were using before they started using this one? It wasn't made real clear. And again, this is the problem of trying to research something in another country, and especially in a country whose first language is not English. So I may have come across it in Romanian, or even Russian in some cases, but I can't read either of those languages. So I don't know if this cemetery is older than the graves that are starting in 1935 or not. But they do still do burials in this cemetery. There's families still using it, and still with the great grandson and everything carrying on the tradition of carving these beautiful, elaborate wooden markers with their epitaphs and the stories of the people there, which is such a treasure. I mean, that's like ancestry.com in miniature in the cemetery. Like,
Yeah.
you know, to stand there and read. And then there's some other ones. There was one that I saw and I didn't share it because it made me really sad, but it was about a little girl who died very young. And it was a very sweet poem that was written about her. Um, but yeah, the funny little ones and the carvings, some of the carvings that are depicted of the people doing just their everyday things. You know, you always have the town clown and
Yeah.
the the resident drunk and all of that. And he makes sure that went on these headstones, or these not stones, markers. Um,
Well,
yeah.
you said too that you said when we were talking beforehand that well, if you think about Romanian culture, it is so colorful. Their clothing
Mm-hmm.
is so bright and just absolutely beautiful. Their churches, the artwork and the just it's just absolutely gorgeous. But you mentioned that these are repainted every 5 to 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm. 8 to 10 years, they said.
8 to 10 years, and it
Mm-hmm.
is also listed on, and I hope I say it correctly, UNESCO.
Yep.
Okay, UNESCO Heritage Site, or it is a UNESCO Heritage
Yeah,
Site.
it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Thank you.
Which I'm glad, because that helps it keep it maintained. And they
Exactly.
do, it is a big tourist destination apparently. So to come to this specific, and I think one of the things I saw, and again it was in Romanian, but I think to visit the cemetery you do have to pay an entrance fee. It didn't look like it was very much, but you pay a fee to enter it, and then you pay an additional fee if you plan to photograph or videotape it. They had a couple different fees
Oh,
for
there's
that.
nothing wrong with that.
No, and you know that money probably is what helps to go towards
Hmm.
preserving the older crosses and the older wooden structures, and then of course the newest ones that get made eventually will need to be kept up as well.
Well,
Um,
it's a good way to take advantage, not in a bad way, but take advantage of the traffic they're having come,
mhm.
tourists coming to visit. I mean, so I think that's wonderful that they're doing that to be able to support themselves and keep things up.
Well, and it's such a lovely little space, and again the whole area, just from the pictures I could see, I've never been there, but kind of makes me want to go. And what I liked about this was this shows us, you know, especially as Americans, I think one of our only real references to this part of the world has to do with Dracula,
Hmm.
because that his castle is in Romania, and we hear about it through that. But unless you've traveled to that part of the world, or you have family that's come from that part of the world that immigrated over here, some of this is a little misunderstood, I think, by Western culture. And so I
Yeah.
think this is a really special way for, if you're visiting, to get a chance to kind of delve into what it's like to be there in these small villages in these mountains, where their religion does play a huge part in their everyday lives. I mean, it's just integrated into everything they're doing. And then it shows up again in their deaths when they combine their Christian belief with their very, very, very old Dacian beliefs.
Hmm.
And they put the two together, and this is the result of it. And I think it's glorious. And this is definitely, if I ever had the opportunity to go that far, it would be a stop that I would have to make now after seeing it. So I'm
Well,
hoping there are more. If you have ever visited this cemetery, so when I looked at Find a Grave, there's 84 of these, I think it said 84 of these photos of different graves uploaded. it'd be so cool to see more of them because again, there's currently, as of last count, over 800
Wow.
um, of these blue crosses with these epitaphs and everything. And of course, like I said, all the epitaphs are in Romanian, whatever, and it's a local dialect of Romanian. But there are translations for a lot of them, which is what we read to you today were the English translations. So, but still entertaining.
And I think that's why when you visit um, a community, a town, another country, visiting the cemetery is a must because that's where you may not know all the stories, but you see the stories. Like
Mm-hmm.
this definitely tells a story about the community and the people who live there without you having to read anything, if that makes any sense. It just sort of shows the colorfulness and how they look at life and how they are invested in tradition and art and how important it is because we see so many cemeteries that just literally fade away into the dust. And
Yeah,
this is,
this one is definitely a huge part of the community there.
yeah,
So I don't see this one going anywhere anytime soon or falling into major disrepair anytime soon, um, because they've continued to pass the tradition down and they've found apprentices every time
mhm,
uh, to make sure that it continues. And again, with having it marked as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, that really does help the community keep it up
yep,
and gives them something. But I could just imagine being a local there and some days just wanting to go visit the cemetery just to read the stories.
yeah,
It would take a while to get through all 800 plus stories. So if
no,
they
that's
don't have a
wonderful.
library, they do have a cemetery where there's a lot of fun poetry
Yes,
to read.
the cemetery is the library of the community.
I love that.
Thank you for joining us today. To learn more about today's episode, visit our website, theordinaryextraordinarycemetery.com, where you'll find additional links in our show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you enjoyed this or any of our episodes, consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Your support helps others find our show and discover all of our ordinary, extraordinary stories.
You can also follow us on social media for cemetery facts, photos, quotes, and more. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Ordinary Extraordinary Cemetery. If you'd like to help support us financially, you can donate a cup of coffee by clicking on the coffee cup icon on our website or YouTube, or purchase some of our fabulous Ordinary Extraordinary Cemetery merchandise through our store link.
Until we meet again.